After a decade of violence, aid agencies report the economic situation in Syria is as bad as it's ever been.
More than 80% people in Syria now living below the poverty line. So there's a lot of reasons for that, be it the prolonged conflict, be it the intensification of sanctions, the situation in neighboring Lebanon, the rising food insecurity, and in general, the impact of the pandemic in Syria.
A pandemic which disrupted the strongest economies, crushed Syria's already fragile system, and pushed the finances of its neighbours to the limit. Countries like Lebanon, Jordan and Turkey have taken in millions of refugees throughout the civil war, and that's putting major strain on social cohesion, employment and public services, as their own citizens struggle too.
Since 2011, $8.8 billion have been received in support to the Lebanon Crisis Response Plan, whilst the crisis costed Lebanon $46 billion in direct and indirect costs.
Lebanon estimates nearly a quarter of its population are Syrian refugees. A big part of the money promised will go to supporting those countries and the Syrians they're helping. But in Syria itself, some aid agencies believe a new strategy is needed. Nearly all of them agree that more funding is extremely important. But how the money is used could make all the difference. Some aid agencies are frustrated with the strings that come attached to EU funding. Many member states require it only be used for emergency, life-saving support. But in some parts of the country, that creates a system that doesn't work for Syrians.
I remember talking to women in rural Aleppo who said that we cannot feed our families for days just because there's been some delay in receiving food parcels because of the movement restrictions. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying families have become heavily reliant on this humanitarian assistance.
After 10 years of war, she believes it's high time for aid which allows some semblance of a normal economy to develop.
Addressing recovery and resilience needs of the community should not be conflated with the reconstruction of Syria at all. Early recovery and resilience is a key component of any humanitarian response, and in any other context, it would have been a no-brainer after 10 years.
But that's difficult in Syria. The European Union itself is imposing sanctions against the government, which limits investment in infrastructure until President Bashar al-Assad holds democratic elections.
We cannot and we will not normalize anything while violence and repression continues.
The EU hopes the extra money will help keep people alive and go some way to helping the millions scarred by the conflict. But most agree a long-term, sustainable solution only comes from a political resolution.
That humanitarian assistance will not solve what is happening in Syria right now. What we need are hard-won political solutions to end what is happening there.
Until such settlement is reached, international aid remains crucial to the millions outside and inside of Syria trying to survive.